Welcome to the Bold Analysis. In this podcast, there is a list I want us to look at. And this is the list of how countries fared on the countries that voted for Raila, allegedly, and those who never voted for Raila. Dr. Ali Maalim, who is the deputy governor of Mandera, and this is a UDA ally, and of course, at one point was actually a personal friend to the Djibouti candidate, is issuing a statement, or rather shared this list. At this point where the state is trying to control narrative, you'll agree with me that this statement, or rather this list, has been released for a purpose. But then, to give you a good understanding, before we look at that list, I would want us to take a minute and follow this story by Citizen.
He had led for 2 rounds of the election until he stopped leading. Kenya is still counting its losses, and the candidate is yet to understand what really happened in the dying embers of the contest that saw his ambitions go up in flames.
And actually we were sure we win. But as I say, other factors have come into play. And those factors are going to come out and will be known.
However, the unforeseen circumstances may be interpreted to mean the recent high-octane last-minute regional politics triggered by a series of events, including the DRC-Congo conflict that Kenya played a role in resolving. The perception that Kenya was supporting Rwanda and the M23 militia by extension, ruffling feathers with DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi, and by extension the South African Development Community SADC, where DRC is also a member.
The candidate from Madagascar, the number of votes that he got, 10. And then when we came to round 2, you were also able to see the patterns that were playing. So you can clearly see that the Francophone countries were able to stick together.
The effect, Tshisekedi is keeping an EAC meeting organized by President William Ruto, opting to turn up for the SADC one that set the ball rolling for Odinga's failure. Kenya's Foreign Affairs PS Korir Sing'oei's response to a letter directing SADC countries to line up behind the Madagascar candidate Richard Randriamandrato, adding to the list of possible blunders which analysts say rattled the SADC countries.
To our minds, we think that this letter is sort of an afterthought. We think that it is mere courtesy to show a bit the minimalist solidarity extended to a member of their region.
The SADC power shift would be evident from the 3rd round of the election, with the numbers of the supposed SADC candidate Richard Randriamandrato shifting to the Djibouti candidate, who opened the gap between him and Raila to the last round. Odinga was forced to bow out in the 6th round, where Mahmoud Ali Yusuf went ahead and won the race by the required 2/3 of the total votes, translating to 33 votes. Analysts have also opined that the Francophone countries, which make up nearly 28 out of 55 African countries, may have played a role maintaining a united bloc in the election.
They voted for their country. And then you also look at it that the Anglophone countries were not able to vote as a unit. And then also you look at also other regional politics and then regional interests that were at play also might have affected a great deal the outcome of these elections.
Out of the 6 AUC chairperson elections since 2002, 5 have been won by French-speaking countries, with South Africa's Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma being the only lucky Anglophone to occupy the seat. Odinga's loss comes barely 8 years after another one, where Kenya's candidate in the 2017 AUC election, Ambassador Amina Mohamed, lost to Musa Faki in the same fashion.
Now, you can see the different dynamics. I wanted you to look at that story because I think Citizen tried to bring in different dynamics in this. If you look at all these things people are saying, they boil down to one thing, that Kenya was not supposed to present a candidature. I still maintain that is, for me, that is where I remain. All this we are talking about is supposed to look at how, is supposed to show us that. Now, this statement has been released by Dr. Ali Maalim, and Dr. Ali Maalim is the deputy governor of Mandera. Mandera is a county bordering Kenya to the other side of Ethiopia. So it's really, you can go to Addis Ababa by bus. The people who went to Addis Ababa by bus. And at the time, Raila Odinga said, made a statement that we should not blame Ruto for this. This statement came in. It's interesting to know how countries decided on where to vote. Faith, interest, ideology. It's talking about those three things that played out. Faith, interest, ideology. So faith is in terms of the Muslim nations decided to converge around their candidature. And we're going to look at interesting, this list, how this list is playing out. Raila Odinga, countries that voted for Raila, and this was actually, this is now the 6th round. This is the last round, then Raila bolted out of the race. Benin, Gambia, Liberia. So find out, Raila visited Benin, he visited Gambia, he visited Liberia, he was in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Burundi, Kenya, of course. I don't know that Raila was in Rwanda, but he was in Rwanda at some point, yes. Rwanda, South Sudan. He never went to South Sudan though, but of course that was somehow guaranteed. Tanzania, Uganda, Central Africa Republic, Congo Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, Botswana, they had a new president, Eswatini, I can't remember, Lesotho he visited, Malawi he visited, Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. I can remember when he was received by Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe. Those are 22 countries that voted for Raila Odinga. If you look at that list, let's just look at the Raila side. If you just look at that list, there's some observations that we are going to make on that. Now look at Ali Mohamud. This is the 6th round before Raila dropped off the race. Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Chad, Cameroon, Egypt, Sahrawi, this is the Morocco, Tunisia, Seychelles, Mauritius, DR Congo, Togo, Djibouti, Madagascar, Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Mauritania, Comoros Island, Namibia, Angola, Sao Tome Principe, Guinea-Bissau, Ghana, and Cape Verde. I want to look at, in this podcast, I know there is a question of how did he know this? This list could as well be a cooked list, but it could still be a list available that has been brought to the public to achieve some objectives. In fact, I would not want to agree that this list is legit. The voting was secret, but again, 2017 there were information on the countries that abstained. I was trying to ask, they can know. This is Africa. Not that this thing is such a big secret. No, they can know how the countries voted. They can know. So that voting secret, but they themselves, it can be retrieved. But why did this list come at this time? What is the purpose it serves? And I want to believe that this did not come out in public without being sanctioned by the decision makers in this country. There is something that they wanted to achieve. First, I just wanted to look at it roughly. Just look at some intrigues there. If you look at the voting is 22 versus 27, that comes to 49. That Sao Tome and Principe, that country, was actually included in that list last minute because they were out of AU, but based on It was actually based on subscription. They had not just paid their subscription, their annual subscription to the AU, and that is why they were locked out of the AU, but it was paid last minute. You will also realize there that Algeria and Morocco and Egypt, who are the giants of the north, voted the side of Djibouti. But different, and if you look at the analysis that, the Citizen TV analysis that you saw, you will understand the motive of such a story. Let's look at what this list, where this list has been dispatched, what those who dispatch this list want to achieve. Number one, after Raila Odinga lost, there are a clique of legislators that have been saying and have been asking why Kenya should be a member of the East African community. Why Kenya should be a member of the East African community. And of course, a narrative was crafted, has been emerging, that the East African community was a bit fragmented. Now, this list is supposed to confirm, according to this list, all the countries except the new entrants of Somalia and DRC are the ones that never voted for Raila. And according to this list, even if all those votes were together, they still could not warrant Raila Odinga loss. And now, this is what it wants to achieve, that even as we complain that the East African community may not have voted for Raila, but even if you put all those votes together, because even if you take those two, the Somalia and the DR Congo and Urusho Isaidia Raila, still he cannot make it. So it's supposed to demystify that narrative, because there are a clique of MPs that have been raising that point, and they've been saying, why is it that the vote was never casted for Raila Odinga? That Raila Odinga did not receive the requisite numbers needed. And that is one of the objectives of this, and probably, and you see, it is, and that is why even the person who has shared it is saying faith, interest, ideology. If it was based on ideology, Raila had an ideology. I don't know whether that was the best that the continent needed is a different story altogether, but he also had an ideology. The second objective of that list is to debunk the narrative that SADC vote costed Raila Odinga. That the SADC vote did not go to Raila Odinga is why Raila Odinga did not win it. We cannot fight with facts. You cannot fight with numbers. I think we better understand and acknowledge the dynamics that we faced. When you try to twist factors like this was there, this was not there, we are not taking responsibility of our missteps on the things that we got wrong as a country. If you look at this list, South Africa, of course, but I really believe South Africa, Ramaphosa is a personal friend to Raila for quite some time, for long. So Ramaphosa, of course, could have voted for Raila. And why I'm saying this is you look at South Africa, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. That Zimbabwe, the President Ruto met the Zimbabwe president in their palace there. I don't know whether it's a palace or their state house there. And made a verbal commitment of going to visit, of going to vote for Raila Odinga. So, and the chair of SADC is actually Mnangagwa. Understand? The chair of SADC is Mnangagwa. And if the chair of SADC is Mnangagwa, then clearly that shows that probably someone wants to demystify the fact that, you know, if the chair of SADC voted for Raila, so why are we saying that SADC costed Raila? But someone would want to underestimate that point, because the whole discussion about SADC boils down to what's happening in DR Congo. The SADC lost region, a bloc lost 10 soldiers from DR Congo, and Ruto has been playing a very weak role in that. Another thing is Kenya ties with Somalia. Kenya ties with Somalia. I want to say this. We opened our borders to allow for the Somali guys to cross this side. It's going to allow them to, with the ID vetting lifted at the ID acquisition, probably quite a number of them are going to be this side. This is a country that my little knowledge, or probably lack of the same, shows me they needed to support Kenya. All the other factors laid, the kind of Somalia, Kenya has been there for the last like 15 years, if I remember, during the Grand Coalition government by Mwai Kibaki. So this government needed to, but of course it's only showing that Somalia might have voted for the Djibouti candidate, and now is talking about the issue of faith. West Africa vote. Of course, if you look at the list that has been given out, West Africa vote, quite a majority of it went to Djibouti candidate. We would, did we pursue ECOWAS? And I'm wondering, the structure of voting is based on regions. Yes, it's based on regions, if my memory serves me right. And if it is based on regions, why is it that these blocks cannot come out and say it is ECOWAS we are enriching candidate X and maybe SADC we are enriching candidate Y? Why is it going then to individual lobbying if it is based on regions? Something is a bit sinister. But you can also tell me why this list has been produced, because I am a bit convinced it is not in good faith. Not that it has something substantive to discuss, but it is being released for a purpose. Yes, so guys, we've also bought the fryer, the double one. This is double, so unafika both sides. Unafika hii na huku, and have this one. So ile kitu imebaki ni the setup. Yo, naitwaje baby? Yeah, the display. Yeah. Yeah. Then now this is a new place. Yeah. So guys, we've done a bit of it. So from here we're going to pay the rent and do another cash transfer for Josephine. And this one tutaki biashara yangu. Okay. Tunataka biashara. Na make sure umeshikilia na usikule pesa yote. Niliambiwa nikwambie hivyo.
Siwezi kula biashara kama haijafika.
We are going to pay you house rent ya huko for 5 months. So that ile pesa unafanya hata kama ulipa rent uweke ukianza kulipa rent usikuwe struggle na. And guys, I want to see David. I want to thank David. David is my support on all this. He's the person who is normally running up and down. Tunamshukuru sana yeye ndiye alikuwa. Namtakaa na David sana ku make sure kwamba biashara zinaenda David. Yes. Ukiwa na shida you still inform us. But when wataanza by when?
By next week.
By next week. Monday. So tukikuja Monday, tukikuja Monday na viti itakuwa imewekwa. Mimi nataka nikuje Monday nione hiyo kama sasa iko. Mimi mwenyewe nikuje nikule. Sio? Sawa. So guys, that's what we've done for that one. The business is going to be on Tingeneza is supposed to be open, so on Monday it will be ready so that Josephine can come there. Josephine can say something.
Nimeshukuru sana kwa kuendelea, ni vizuri mnisaidie, mnisimamishe. Kuna watoto wanahitaji kusoma. Mimi nimeshukuru sana, Mungu awabariki na awazidishie baraka kwenu.
Sounds